This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, it is 6 p.m. I will now call to order the February 23rd meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted fully remotely due to the weather and the fact that City Hall is closed. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, the online meeting will not be restarted and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on to public hearings and just note that our, actually, Ava, has this already been continued to March 9th or we need to?
No, I believe that there is a request to continue it to March 9th.
All right, so we have a request for determination of applicability for 20 and 30 Ballard Street for confirmation of the wetland boundary, and the applicant has requested a continuance to March 9th.
Motion to continue to March 9th at 6 p.m.
I'll second.
All those in favor will need a roll call vote. Ryan?
Aye.
Buttrick?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Lore? All right, motion carries. So we will continue that item to 6 p.m. on March 9th. We have no request for certificate of compliance. Ava, any enforcement action updates?
No enforcement action updates.
All right, moving on to open space. I know we have things to talk about on Borkowski parcel. Any other? Well, it looks like we do have others. Do we have anything on Echodale before we skip over that?
I don't have anything on Echodale.
Okay, we'll move on then to Borkowski parcel and the natural heritage response letter.
Excellent. All right, so we are going to go ahead and project it. So on February 12th, we received a natural heritage response letter, a partial determination, and notice that additional information is required on our application. So their response had multiple parts to it. The first they noted that some of the very edge of our trail map extends onto property owned by Aaron Newton that the city has a conservation restriction on. As such, we need a written permission from Aaron Newton that we are applying to continue to do work. So this is for the trail work sections of this, not a new trail establishment, but just the trail improvements we proposed as part of this application. I have gotten in contact with Aaron Newton since this letter. He's in support of the project, and I sent him a template for a permission. So I'm waiting to receive that back from him, but we should receive that soon.
Great.
So that piece of the letter is taken care of, and I'll send that to them. I don't think they say the remainder of the letter excludes his property, but I don't think it should change much of the rest of the substance of the letter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so coming into the uphill climbing trail. So I guess, Chair Busa, should I read this? Should we summarize it? How do you think we should describe it?
Have commissioners had a chance to read over the letter generally?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I think, Ava, just a summary would be fine.
Okay, great. All right, so my summary with the uphill, or my summary is that Natural Heritage doesn't feel like they have enough information from us, particularly about the uphill climbing trail. The sense I have gotten from this letter and consulting with Steve Ribberty of Goddard, who worked on this project before, who had a chance to talk to Misty Ann, sort of picking up all of the different pieces of this project, is that Natural Heritage has reason to believe that those state listed species are more likely to be found in the parcel than we initially believed they were. Our habitat letter from Oxbow Associates from 2022, which they clarify here doesn't address this area, doesn't address the construction specifically of the trail we're proposing. It's too general, and it was focused on another location on the site for another project. But in that Oxbow letter, they outline that the parcel is extreme summer foraging habitat for those state listed species, or that was what they identified the habitat as. Based on the response we've gotten and consulting with experts who work with natural heritage regularly, it seems more likely that they have reason to believe there are snakes overwintering on the site, which is partially why this is, I suspect, is a stronger response than we maybe hoped they would provide us. So the next step here, so they want a qualified biologist to do a habitat assessment that follows the route of our proposed trail in the field. And I'll just read what she said. Seeks opportunities to relocate it in part or whole onto existing trail segments, and to have an eye out for those overwintering and breeding features. So I took the liberties of getting us 2 quotes from people who are these qualified biologists, from Steve Ribberty from Goddard and from Scott Smeyers from Oxbow Associates, both of whom had actually worked on this project the first time around. Steve Ribberty was working for GZA at the time. So I thought they would be good people to bring in here, because either one of them potentially good people to bring in here because they are familiar with the site broadly. And they have quotes for us for this habitat assessment as outlined. So maybe let's pin that and progress through the letter and come back to it. Okay. So the next one regarding water bars, we talked about installing water bars as part of the trail improvements to the existing trail system. And it looks like the Natural Heritage is looking for a lot more information about those water bars. And they want, and including the precise location. And I will just share that the advice I've received, again, from people who worked with Miss Sienna Natural Heritage more closely than I've had the opportunity to do at this point, is that there's concern about small water features on this site, such as seeps, springs, itty bitty vernal pool like things that are not official resource areas, that water bars that could be directing trail water or contaminated sediment laden water into, which those elements are important habitat for our data sensitive species. So I'll just note that as a possible reason there. And then the other major piece that she's looking for is the trail maintenance and stewardship plan. So really a comprehensive plan for how we're going to continue maintenance of the site moving forward. And she'll review that for the next however long, 10 years, 20 years we write it for. Then the remainder of the plans is that we can build the bridges as we planned to, and we can close the trails that we wanted to close, and we can make the trail map we wanted to make. Specifically, the bridges need to happen during non-active snake season, during between November 1st and April 1st. So in the winter time. And yeah, that's my summary of the letter. Should we maybe talk about that first, and then, or are there questions from commissioners?
Bummer.
So Ava, with the bridge work, I forget where we had that listed in the phasing. That was something we intended to do early on anyways, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so in order to proceed with that, if we wanted to try, I know we have at least for some of those, we have the possibility of volunteer labor. So the only thing really in our way to potentially getting those done before April 1st would be the need to complete our own permit, correct?
Precisely. Yep.
Okay. So that's something we may want to think about, whether that timeline is feasible. Otherwise, we'll have to wait until next winter or late next fall.
Yep. And I think, yeah, my only barrier on proceeding with our permit on that is the snow conditions out there.
Right. And that could be a barrier to getting the bridges installed before April 1st too, at the rate we're going. Okay.
I also wonder, and I think this could be a longer conversation that you and I have offline, Julie, but around knowing that our hope is to install these bridges with volunteer labor, like what kind of specifications we need to include in the NOI around the bridge, around the bridges, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. All right. So it seems like most of the conversation is returning to the earlier piece, the habitat assessment, what that might look like, and what our possibilities are for continuing to move that piece forward.
Yep. Yeah. And so I'll just to share fully with the commission, in my conversations with Steve Ribberty, he had an opportunity. I sort of brought him in immediately on this. He had known we were applying to natural heritage before. I know the commission's worked with him closely on other projects, and I know that he had been on this project back in the day. And he had a scheduled call with Miss Deanne for a different project. And he was like, I'm just going to pick her brain about this one while I have her on the call, which is great because, as the commissioners know, I've been struggling to get Natural Heritage to chat with me about this project for the last year. So that was great that he was able to get a little more information about it. I think so some of the more qualitative pieces that I heard from him that were not sort of in our formal response letter had to do with that Miss Deanne does see there as being a real nest of mountain bike trails on the mountain already, on these parcels on the mountain already, and that she is maybe more dubious than we are at our ability to close trails adequately. Which is partially why it seems as though she would support moving this trail into existing trails, even if those were trails we were going to close. We were proposing to close over building new tread through the woods. So I think she, based on experience in other parts of the state, has experienced that it can be challenging to close trails, that people are avid lovers of their trail. So I really think we're going to have more success out here because there has never been a trail map of this parcel, and because we're working so closely with NEMBA. So the combination of our ability to blaze it the way we want to make the only trail map that's ever formalized out there, and to get NEMBA collaborating with us to keep trail users on the trails that we want them to be on, I think sets us up for more success to successfully route traffic.
Yeah, I agree. There are probably some folks using the trails for mountain biking that aren't associated in any way with the folks from NEMBA who are kind of leading up this charge, but I really think that the majority of users are probably within the umbrella of either NEMBA as an organization or in conversation with those same individuals. And so I think that the message is going to get out, and the ability to transfer to new trails and close down old ones is going to be pretty effective.
Okay. So I did have a conversation with Walker Metcalf, the NEMBA trail builder, who helped outline the path through the woods that was our original proposed 1.1 mile yellow trail. And I had a conversation with him about basically, could we relocate it in sections onto existing tread, and how successful would we be at building a better trail, like a machine built trail on top of, almost like a layer cake, right? On top of the existing trail. And he seemed certainly like interested in figuring out where that's possible on the site. If I pull up the map, we can look at that real quick. It's all about the slope, right? So it's all
Yeah.
about checking the slope at those specific spots.
There was also, am I remembering correctly that the last time we discussed this, there was some interest or conversation from NIMBA about approaching another private landowner to see if they could get, like, there was a route that they maybe would like even better than this one,
Yep.
on a different parcel.
Yeah, that goes through what is now Damaris's parcel.
If we're going to have a habitat assessment, we're gonna have to pay for that. It
Yeah.
strikes me that we want to really have, we want to kind of be putting all these pieces together at the same time so that the assessment is covering both the preferred location and how that preferred location might interface with places where we can keep it on existing trails, kind of be looking at all of that simultaneously so that we don't look at it once and then need a different habitat assessment if that isn't where we end up with it.
Right. Yeah, so it sounds like it's perhaps a good opportunity for me to really approach Damaris here and ask him about formalizing a trail easement through parts of this parcel. Is that your suggestion, Chair Busa?
Yeah, I guess so. Unless NIMBA thinks that they can make more headway independently.
That has not been the sense I've gotten in my conversations with NIMBA, but I mean, that could change. Yeah.
Or we just accept that that's a private parcel and we say, okay, we're limited to what we have here. But I just remember that being a topic at the last conversation.
Right. I did bring it up with Brian Belwicki at one of my site visits of Tasty Top. I mentioned that the city was interested in it, that the city would love to talk to Frank about it, that we'd be, interested in hearing like what his visions for this parcel are, like why, anything like that. Commissioner Carr, did you want to say something?
I just had a question. If NIMBA succeeded in getting an easement to have their part of their new trail go through Damaris's property, would the habitat assessment also have to go through? We also have to do a habitat assessment on Damaris's property to satisfy NEPA requirements.
Yeah. Wherever we put the route, I'm thinking it seems like we're going to be looking for that habitat assessment to sort of scour that site. Seems like it would be a narrower buffer, like a narrower range where the existing trail is, like the buffer around the existing trail may be smaller than if we're building new trail. But I guess I would trust.
We would have to pay for that even if it's on private property, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it would be our project.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that the assessment that we'd be doing is just for where we now think we want trails, right? So like if we do the assessment, there's areas where we're just like, this is just too dense. Like we're never going to actually be able to put a trail here. We want to go a different way than that, where they're not assessing the entire parcel, right? So that it's just where the trails are located currently. So
yeah. So I did take an opportunity so the orange trail is the trail that NEMBA originally outlined.
Yep.
There's a blue trail. This trail right here. Can you all see my mouse? I'm not sure.
I cannot.
No.
I know.
Okay. Wonder if I can. I can draw on it. Ooh, yeah. Okay, you guys can see that?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, that's cool. Oh, and it fades. Look at
Oh.
that. Okay. All right. So this trail right here, in many ways seems like sort of the obvious one to say, like, wait, what if we just improve that trail? So that trail is the descending trail on the site, that folks typically use, and I don't think it has super sustainable grades for an ascending trail. So I think that trail we should leave as is and not try to turn the descending trail into an ascending trail. I took these sections of trail that are green here that I'm now highlighting in green. I turned them green to highlight sections where maybe we could, depending on what Walker thinks the slope is like, what the grade is like, maybe we could basically layer cake in those locations. So rather than starting the climbing trail from here, we could start it over here when cyclists come out of this loop, have them come up here, and then we probably still need to have a little bit of new trail, but then somehow crossing. So a little bit of new trail here, but then somehow crossing back onto this section of green trail, maybe cutting around the corner of the Jacques parcel, something like that. I have no idea if that's possible, but I guess I'm just offering that there are possibilities out here depending on the grades.
So it kind of feels like the next steps, we need NEMBA to take another look at potential routes that would work to meet the goals of the project, but also include as much overlap as we can get on existing trails. One. And then it almost seems like the approach for the habitat assessment would be kind of, here's our preferred route, and maybe it's still the yellow. Here's some alternatives. Have those all kind of queued up. And then I think it would make a lot of sense if we could get somebody from NEMBA who understands the route options out there with the habitat assessor, so that we could be looking at a section and say, this is good habitat, this is not going to fly, shift over, look at another option, and kind of be doing that as we go. Sure. If that's an approach that everybody would be amenable to. That might make it a little more complicated, a little more expensive, but I think it would probably save us time and money in the long run if we could have it all happening in the field rather than having to come back, report, go back out, check a different area, come back, report.
I agree.
Makes sense.
And this is a good moment too to remember that we still have $23,000 in our CPA account that was originally designed for permitting. So we did, I know Dan said, I know Commissioner Buttrick said bummer at the beginning of this. This isn't obviously the thing we were hoping Natural Heritage was going to come back to us with, but it was certainly within the realm of possibility of what we thought they could come back with.
Yeah, I think Julie's reasoning is sound, makes sense.
Okay, so we need to sort of nail in, like, where could we relocate it, and that probably needs to happen with Walker as soon as the trail is. I mean, I guess at this point we could do it on snowshoes, and figure out what if these sections, I don't really see other particularly good options. I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah. The private parcels, as you all know, are the challenge on this site.
Yep.
I mean, maybe there's something where we like take this whole thing and then cut over so we don't cut in, and then, something like that.
Ava, what is the longer thin parcel? Whose is that?
This one up top here.
Yes.
Hold on. Yeah. This one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's also owned by Frank Demarinis. The same. It's the log cabin also.
So
owned.
that whole section.
Yes. Yep. So, oh yeah.
Is it possible to do habitat assessment through snow? I mean, I don't know that much about herpetology,
we're
but I would think you'd need to be able to see the ground to do that.
Yeah, no. So, right. So my understanding is that a habitat assessment could happen in April. And that actually that would be a really ideal time. Steve's hypothesis, Steve Liberty, who put together this scopes, his hypothesis on how they know there's likely overwintering happening here is that they saw one of the data sensitive species on site. There's some sighting of it probably in April. So at a time when it wouldn't have made sense for them to have traveled down from higher up on the mountain. So he was like, it would be great to get out there in April because maybe we'd even have like a good, like that's when things are still sort of fresh. So I asked him to put together a scope. It seems like maybe the commission wants to hold off on beginning working with a habitat. What do you think?
What, first up, Ava, you said you had reached out to 2 people, but I
Yes.
think in the email you suggested that you weren't sure one of them really captured our full scope.
Well, so this was okay. So this one came from Scott Smyers. I just haven't had a chance to really explain to him. I guess I would want to investigate if the commission did want to go with Scott with Oxbow here. I'd want to investigate a little further why his number comes in so much lower here. I've just had opportunities to have a lot more conversations with Steve Liberty about really what's going on the site, and Steve's already been talking to Misty Ann about it. So I just get a better sense that Steve Liberty's number is more representative of the scale of the site that we're working with and the complications of the site. That's really my only thought on where they differ. They certainly, both describe the same set of tasks. So there's not a difference in how they describe their scope.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to stick with people when they know the site and seem to be doing a good job in general, so even if Goddard's a little more expensive, if they really seem to have their finger on the pulse of what's happening, it makes sense to stick with them, I think.
And what is there a total on this?
There isn't. We can do the math really quick though.
265.
77.
Okay. And I think if we're below 10, we're okay procurement wise, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I had that confirmed from our procurement officer that I didn't go through a formal RFP process, right? I just reached out to these guys and said, can you give me a scope? And procurement officer verified that was a fine procedure here.
Okay. So I guess I would just recommend talking through what we just suggested in terms of the in-field coordination with NEMBA and being able to kind of look at multiple areas and react in the field as we're realizing somewhere seems good or bad, and see how that changes the scope or fee, and see if we're still below that threshold.
My understanding is that Steve and I spoke about that exact thing, and that that is sort of included in what he's considering here.
Okay.
At least in that site walk. I mean, I think he was anticipating that Miss Ann may be looking for like a 200-foot buffer on construction of new trail for the habitat assessment. So I think his understanding was that site walk layout coordination would happen with NEMBA, myself, to get everyone on the same page to figure out different locations. But then when he's actually out there doing the habitat assessment, that would be longer timing. Are you thinking it would be good to have someone from NEMBA out there that whole time?
I kind of am. I mean, I don't know what his process looks like for habitat assessment itself and how long he's out there, but I'm just imagining that if we have a preferred trail option and then we have a couple backup ideas in mind, and he's starting up the preferred option and realizing like, there's some obvious habitat features here that we're never going to get around, then we'd want to be able to just change on the fly, stop moving up that path and assessing it, and switch to a different option. That was kind of my thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because otherwise we're going to wind up spending another $7,700 to assess a different trail after NS comes back and says no way.
Right.
Yep. Okay. All right.
And I think because of the importance of the slope and the design of that trail for it to work properly, it's not like we can just make that he can't make the call on where you would adjust it to.
Right.
We'd need NEMBA's input on that.
Right. Yeah, and I wonder if there's any of that, depending on what Walker's constraints are. Like, if there's any of that he could teach to myself or a different NEMBA volunteer of like what exactly they're looking for.
Yeah.
Or that we could borrow his tool or something like that too. Okay. So I guess one other thing just to note while we're talking about habitat, this is only for the uphill climbing trail is what we've been engaging with right now.
Mhm.
There was also the piece about the water bars. Do we want to just table that or remove that part of the project for now? I feel like the idea that we would be able to assess every location on this site where we would want to build a water diversion feature to allow the site to better drain, it just feels so preposterous to me right now. I don't know, but I'm curious what the commissioners think.
I think what it's coming to is that we're going to need a design for the actual trails. It's more than just a line, but
Mhm.
like this in this section, there's going to be a slope, and here's the water bars, and those kinds of things. Maybe once we know where the habitat areas are, it'll kind of it'll be easy to figure out. Because my guess is Natural Heritage doesn't want water bar directing runoff at an important area or whatever, so yeah, I think maybe once the habitat assessment is done, things may be more clear, and maybe at that point we might find that we're able to take kind of like the line trail plan that we have and just mark it up with like water bar points and approximate cross slopes and slopes along the length and or something like that. But yeah, I guess I feel like this question may answer itself a little bit at a later point.
I think that's true for the new trail, but I think the water bars were also intended as improvements on existing trails, right, Ava?
Yes.
And so we won't necessarily be assessing all the places for habitat that would be near those. So it seems like it would be a good step once the snow clears to whoever is thinking that they would identify those locations. I guess that's probably NEMBA again, or was that more of a hiking?
Yeah, I mean, I can try to do it, NEMBA and myself maybe can try to figure out where it is, I guess it is like it's looking for the muddy locations, right? It's looking for the places where water isn't draining properly.
Yeah. So it seems like a good first step there would be just once the snow is clear and it's the right season to assess where those locations are, just drop points everywhere that we're thinking they might be relevant. And then we'll have to figure out whether we could at least share that with Natural Heritage, and maybe they already have something in mind behind that they'd be able to say, oh, well, we don't want one here, we don't want that one there, or maybe it would require another piece of habitat assessment for that element.
Right.
I guess I've been blending everything together in my mind. I thought we were going to have the habitat for the existing trail areas assessed, but I guess I missed that point.
I think the scope you got was just for the new trail, right, Eva?
It's just for the new trail. And yeah, they don't require in here, they don't require in here a full, like a full habitat assessment of the whole parcel, like of the areas where we're not planning on doing work.
Yep. I'm seeing that now.
Okay.
And I mean, I do also think I do feel a little bit like the construction of water bars and the trails maintenance and stewardship plan, like those sort of dovetail into each other, right? Like they want information about how we're going to continue to maintain the site.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think that will be a good, a springtime summer project for me, is really developing that as we evaluate what kinds of maintenance using their DCR trail standards and best practices manual, what we're going to do where, because that's really, it seems like, what we're looking for. Written plan and map shall be submitted that provide locations for each activity and standards for the activity.
Yeah.
So I think we can all, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, Julie.
It seems likely, I don't know that document, but it seems likely that the DCR Trails Guide, if they've got best practices, they probably have water bars. So maybe there's just a particular way they want to see them built. And as long as the locations aren't a red flag for some reason, that might be a relatively simple thing to say, yes, we'll comply with your best practices, and these are where we want to put them.
Right. I think its location is more than I think the location is more than the actual, like, how are we going to build them?
Okay.
So I think just, to get us all on the same page about what kind of timeline we're looking at here, I think certainly the earliest, which I think is what we expect, certainly the earliest we could imagine moving to construction of anything of a new trail would be the next inactive species season. So November 1st to April. So next late fall and winter.
Yeah.
There's a question as to whether or not we could do this trail, do the bridge construction beforehand. We would need to get it in before April 1st in accordance with their letter, unless we wanted to have someone on site.
Remind me, is this a new bridge construction or is this maintenance to the existing one?
It's new bridge. It's little bridges in locations where currently the trail just goes right through the water.
Right.
And we did want to do some maintenance on the existing bridge, but that's really, it's not working on the footings. It's just like some board replacement and railing replacement.
Yep.
I have a question about the habitats. So if we're improving the trails, will this also improve the habitats for the sensitive species? Like, will there be more vernal pools? No, it doesn't.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think if we got advice from our wildlife biologist about any locations we could build habitat features, like I think we would be, I'll communicate to Steve that we're eager for that kind of advice. We're happy to incorporate that into an application if he thinks that would be desirable for natural heritage. Should I begin to contract with Steve on this? Do we want to hold off?
I guess I'm thinking we want him to maybe review and update the scope if we want to look at some different areas for alternative trail locations, it sounds like. And then it seems like if he's going to be out there, then if there were places we knew we really wanted and or needed to do water bars, we could have him look in those spots also. I don't have a good sense, but maybe you do, or Emma does, Ava, and we could assume 2 additional spots or some number that.
Yep.
And just try to get as much information that we think we might be able to use all at once.
Okay.
Do we want to say, like, if it's under 10,000, if that additional scoping ends up being under 10,000, go ahead or something to just keep it moving? Or do we want to wait and have you come back in 2 weeks and tell us what the new scope is going to cost?
I mean, I will say, I'm just going to pull his scope back up. Here he says habitat assessment and report fixed estimated, or really estimated is the key thing here. And I think, what he was saying is that this will really depend on how many miles of trail we're asking him to look at. And it will depend on whether or not that's existing trail or new trail. New trail will be, he thinks it would be a larger buffer. Which kind of makes sense because I guess natural heritage is viewing existing trail as like, all right, the impact's already there. So I guess are we looking, so how he would adjust this scope would be determined by how many total miles of trail we're having to look at, which we don't know yet until, and by an estimate on number of water bars. I really like that idea, Commissioner Buttrick, to just like incorporate those in. And we don't know that until NEMBA has a chance to really scope out, to really assess the slopes of some of the possible existing trails.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it seems like we kind of need another piece of information from NEMBA before we finalize this.
Okay.
Depending on how long this is going to take to complete, when you say under the 10,000, is it you have to stay under 10,000 per year or total project? Like, say it overlaps, we're going into the next year. Does it start over?
It's a purchasing and procurement rule. So if we were going to pay more than $10,000 for this scope, we would have to put it out through an RFP, I believe, and get formal proposals and.
Okay.
I do think though, like, for example, we could ask him to remove the reptile protection plan from this scope, knowing as that's not particularly, that's sort of the next logical step, particularly if we were going to try to do a construction during active season, but that might not necessarily be our next step, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I will, I'll reach out to NEMBA, and as soon as is feasible with seasonal conditions, start, see if we can figure out what are our possible trail options on site. And knowing that the sooner we can get that, the sooner we can start working with a habitat assessment, and with an eye to really doing that habitat assessment as soon as possible, ideally April, because because it's a slow process.
It sounds like a good plan.
Awesome. I don't have anything else on Borkowski.
Great. Can you pop the agenda back up for us, please?
Yes. Awesome. All right, so I intended to show you our new Oliver Street sign tonight, but we're not in person, so you'll have to wait until March 9th. But it looks really good. I'm excited for you all to see it. Al Donahue has offered to donate the lumber for the signpost. He was the original local resident and user of the trails who had asked for this sign, who had said, if the commission recalls, who had said we're having conflicts with hikers and bikers out here. It'd be great if we could like get a little bit of a hand of the city, the people who own this parcel in managing it. And that is what sort of kicked off this whole process. So it's very generous that he's offered to donate the lumber and help with the installation when it happens. So I'm really excited to show it to you, and then we'll and then we can start thinking about, so once the snow is gone, we'll install it, and then I think we can start thinking about where we want to go from a signage perspective next.
Excellent.
Great.
Thanks, Ava.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
And I don't actually have any other. I can't recall why I had added this to the agenda. We have other open space parcels, but I don't think I have any updates for you on any of them.
Okay. How about compliance updates? Which ones do we need to talk about?
I believe the only compliance update I have, I just from Kevin Perrier at 35 Pleasant. T, is that T on here? Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
I had asked him about what his plan is for work, and it seems as though he said they had stopped site work the last time I had talked, but then my sense is that they've begun it again. So I do think they've been very continuously moving those sediment piles around without particularly long breaks. And the silt fencing and straw wattles on site seem to be holding up. So I think we don't need to worry too much about those piles would be my recommendation, but I'm open if the commission has other thoughts.
That sounds good.
Awesome. And I don't have any other compliance updates for you.
Okay, great. Okay, good. The platform's in there. So meeting minutes for January 26th. Have folks had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Yes.
Would anyone care to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I will move that we accept the minutes of, forgive me, the date is
January 26th.
Thank you. That date.
Second.
All those in favor? Laura?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye. The shortest minutes we've ever had.
August? Patrick?
Aye.
And Carr, I can't see you anymore, but I think you're still there.
Aye.
Okay, great. Motion carries.
Awesome. All right. The next thing we have on the agenda is the, here, I'll put the agenda back up, is the wetlands ordinance discussion, and I have some updates for you on that. So it has finished making its way through its review by the city solicitor, the city's attorney, Mark Tanner, and he had some edits, but they were not particularly substantial or dramatic. Most of them were things that were relatively easy to include. Just helpful to have someone who works with law all day look at our law, look at our possible law, and make it more like a law. So that was really helpful. And what that means is that we now have a draft that has made it through planning review. It's made it through all of your review. Thank you. And it's made it through the city's attorney's review. And so I think it's now time for us to really begin introducing the ordinance to the public. We have a draft we feel really good about. It has been shared with other heads of the department within City Hall, as well as the mayor, as well as the planning board. So they all have it now on their desks, and I encourage them to reach out to me if they have questions or concerns or feedback. But I don't think we should wait for them. I didn't give them a timeline, and I'm not necessarily expecting them to go like line for line with comments. So my thoughts on our next steps is to do some introduction sessions to the public about the ordinance at our meetings. And I'm curious what commissioners think about that.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think if we're gonna do them around now, when there's so little activity in our meetings, it's a great use of our meetings. If we suddenly get slammed in the spring, I don't know if it will continue to be. When were you thinking about doing them?
Yeah, I was hoping to kick us into gear as soon as possible. So yeah, thinking that we could maybe have a good presentation put together for the next meeting, March 9th, and then maybe do 3 sessions at 3 of our 4 next upcoming meetings, something like that, where we really we'd include it under general business, and I would do a short slideshow just sort of introducing like what is the Wetlands Protection Act? What does it cover? What is our ordinance? What is our draft ordinance? What does it cover? With the hope to get, with the hope to really try to do our best to advertise it, to get members of the public there. Maybe we need to wait one more. I'm not sure if we think we can advertise appropriately in 2 weeks, if we need to wait until the later March meeting.
My inclination would be like special meeting to just introduce and cover the ordinance. And then like, if we did it on the Monday in between our regular meetings at some point, then, and just say like in 3 weeks at our regular meeting, we'll take, here's the draft, we'll release it to everybody. And at that next 3 weeks later meeting or whatever, we'd accept comments coming in or something like that. I don't know, just to spitball. I mean, it's going to be such a big topic and it's going to dominate whatever meeting we are at. We'll probably go for at least an hour, introducing it, going through minutia, and then having a discussion and everything like that. I think it would derail all the other general business, regular business,
Yeah.
I think right now, though, what are you seeing for the next meeting, Ava?
As in when is our next meeting?
No, just have you received
Agenda.
anything yet? Are we expecting to have new hearings?
No,
at the moment we're in a bit of a lull, so.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I don't have anything. No applications were received today unless they came in hard copy. And our deadlines are always 2 weeks out. Typically they come in at hard copy and electronically simultaneously, which means our only public hearing that we still have is our 2030 Ballard Street RDA, which I don't know where the snowpack will be March 9th, but
Still there.
Probably.
Likely.
That's really what we're waiting for on that site. And other than that, I mean, it's as Borkowski continues to evolve, but I don't anticipate there being a lot of other big information coming immediately. Not that I know of, at least.
So I would say if we can get the word out and we can get a presentation together for the 9th, knowing that it's a light agenda, that would be a great place to start the conversation. And then if we do get, tons of people coming and it feels like we're going to need to carve out a special meeting for it to really have a longer conversation that we aren't going to have time for within our normal schedule, we could look at that. But it seems like we might as well take advantage of the already scheduled sessions that don't have too much on the agenda.
I like that. I think we should advertise at least 2 dates though when we go to advertise it, like give people the information that they have multiple chances to hear about it. Which of course it's hard to pick like one of the April dates, for example, not knowing what our agenda will be like in April.
Does Easthampton have a town meeting? You know how like a lot of New England towns have a spring town meeting?
No, because we have a mayor.
And a city council.
Yep.
Which is where this will eventually make it to. And, to be honest with all of you commissioners, like I anticipate we're going to have some of the same conversations at our introduction to the public as we will eventually have at both city council, and then also they'll send it to the ordinance subcommittee. And I suspect we'll have many of those conversations at the ordinance subcommittee as well. But I just think it's as good to get the public as many chances and to really be able to say, like, we really did our best to get the word out. We're not trying to sneak anything past you. I think it's just really what we aren't, and that's the we want to make sure that is clear to the public.
I also kind of like the idea, even if we, to your point about needing to give people multiple dates, even if we set a time limit on it and we say we're only going to talk about this for a half hour each time we bring it up, but we're going to talk about it on 3 different occasions, then people don't feel like they have to make it to one particular time if they have an interest in the topic. They've got some options and flexibility. We never put time limits on things, but other commissions do that. So we could say, like, we're only talking about this for a half hour tonight to be respectful of other people's schedules.
So is this on our site? How does the public read the paper document?
Totally. Here, I'll pull up our website right now. There we go. So here you are on our website.
Nice.
And we've got it. Yeah, right up at the top. And here I have adjusted the letter that you all received that includes the table that outlines the different resource areas and just gives some background on it. Oh, you probably couldn't see that, right? Excuse me. Right here. That is linked from the website. And then the text of the actual draft ordinance. And I just think we should be as transparent as possible right from the get-go about the draft fee schedule, because we reference it in the document. And again, like, just really in the interest of full transparency, we're not trying to sneak anything by you. This is our draft fee schedule as well.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, I think it's a good approach, Ava.
Okay. So I'm thinking we try to do the next 3 meetings, and maybe we figure out our possible time limits as we get a sense of what those agendas look like, and maybe reserve our own right to say, actually, we really need to bump this. If we really need to. But I'm going to try to get our Gazette reporter to write about it so we can advertise in the Gazette without paying a legal ad, because we don't need to.
Well, I don't think people read those anyways, so that would not help to get people there.
All right. So the next 3 meetings, that's March 9th, March 23rd, and April 13th.
Great.
Awesome. And if anyone wants, the newest draft is still linked in the ongoing project updates document. So if any commissioner wants a chance to just read, notice where the attorney changed some of the language, you're welcome to see it there.
Okay.
All right. We are down to C.
All right, Nashwanik Fishing Platform presentation. I believe we have somebody here from the Nashwanik Pond Committee.
Paul?
You need to give somebody control, Ava.
Oh,
Are they able to?
Paul, yeah, I think he's here. Are you here? Oh, we can't hear your sound, Paul.
I love the helpful suggestions that AI has been giving on everything all night tonight. Like,
I know.
beautify this slide.
I know.
All right, Ava, you can't hear me?
No, we now
do, Paul.
can. Excellent.
You can, okay. All right. I just toggled the microphone on and off again. I don't know what I did, but it seemed to work. So great. Okay, so yeah, so thanks for hearing us. We talked about this briefly once before. In fact, I think even the commission brought it up, and said, because when we were doing the stabilization wall, what about the viewing platform? And it was on our to-do list, but we just weren't ready for it at that time. And we're still not ready, but I think it's worth exploring with the commission. what the approach would be, what we're anticipating, and what the permitting approach would be as well. So thank you for giving us a little bit of attention. This next slide, Ava, is just who we are. I think you know who we are, but just for point of reference, here we are. Next, let's go to the next slide. So I think you all know what the viewing platform is. It's right on the, it's pretty visible from downtown, just on the downside of the cemetery. And then if you saw the Nash Splash this year at the, certainly Ava did, then you were right there. So since 24, this has been closed down. At least that's the date I have. I don't know if it was before then or not, but anyways, it's not safe, as we'll see in a picture. Go ahead and go to the next one. So you can see the front end of this actually was taken during Winterfest. But you can see that the front scaffolding there for the support beams on the right side as we face it is totally, just hanging in space. So, obviously putting any people out on the platform would not be a good idea. So, it has been rightfully closed and should be until we get it fixed. On the other hand, the good news is that the structural elements of it, in terms of the platform itself, are not in bad shape, really. So we think that most of this can be reused. But if we're doing this much, we'd like to give it a surface dressing, and we think that some of the rails need to be replaced. The balusters, that's the right term. Some of them are just missing totally. But we might want to see if we can get a decent price for actually improving the fence all the way around. But the intention is basically to put this back into working condition, not to change it, and not to do anything heroic with it, just to get it back up and running. On the way it was originally constructed, which you can go to the next slide, Ava. The post, the one that's closest to you in the photo, the support for that post is actually right in the water, or right at the edge of the water, and that was the one that failed. It looks like it may have, been undermined or somehow. But anyway, it's not doing anything. But a really easy fix would be to just move the supports. Go ahead to the next slide. Go to the last slide. Yeah, that's what I wanted. So this is kind of what we're thinking for an approach to do the work, is just to move the support beams, this middle call out, install the new support beams shoreward of the existing ones, and just increase the length of the cantilever a little bit over the pond, and that way we can do all of our work outside of the water and minimize it. And also, if you would just extend the beam, the support beam that goes underneath, that supports the whole platform, like a foot on either side of the platform, if you will. So it would, that beam you can see there comes like a foot towards you. Then that's pretty easy to install the vertical support without actually having to work underneath the platform. So that's our simple-minded approach for how we think we can get this done and minimize the amount of work. And again, we want to do replace maybe some of the decking, and we'll look at what else needs to be replaced. But the idea is we just replace it in its current form and make it usable and safe. So yes, if you can go back, Ava, to that one. So we're trying to keep the project simple, and we're hoping that in line with that, we may be able to keep the permitting approach simple as well. What we would love to do, with your permission, is to avoid having to do a full NOI for this and keep it under determination. The challenge with that, I think, as you probably is aware, is we're within the buffer zone, which is often something you do for getting permission to do something under a negative determination. But we are also within the 100-year floodplain. But we had the same challenge for the stabilization wall, as you may recall. That entire site, up to including where the picnic table is underwater in the 100-year flood. So there's no reason to think this wouldn't be, and probably part of the cemetery as well. But under item 2, under negative determination, you have the possibility of allowing the work to occur if it will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area. And I'd respectfully argue that basically we're replacing it in kind. The only activity we're doing is putting in new piers, taking out the old piers. And the only soil that we have to alter is where we put in the support for the pier itself. But we would not be adding any new fill to that area. We wouldn't have to do that. Anything that we have to dig out in order to place the new beam and install the new beam would just be removed from the site. So we're trying to keep it simple, and unabashedly, we're trying to hopefully do it avoid the necessity for a full NOI, which would slow the project down, and it obviously costs more money because you have to have the plans and all that kind of stuff to go with it in much greater detail than we might have to do under a determination. So that's our approach, and that's our request to see if that's something you would consider. Obviously, we can't, predetermine what your approval process is going to be, but we would like to be able to submit with the possibility of an approval and under a determination of applicability. The next step from that would be we'll go to the building inspector. We'll talk to them about the approach as well, make sure that they concur that this is a good, reasonable way to go. Then we'll talk to some potential contractors who could do the work, see if we can get them on board. And much as you were doing with the Pathway project, we're going to see if we can get this up for a good price and stay below the competitive bid thing where things get ramped up and get a little bit more complicated. So that's kind of where we're at. We thought it would be prudent just to talk with the commission, just to have some mutual understanding about what we're doing and your advice as to how we should proceed. So that's it for me for now.
Paul, just a point of clarification, all of the work would be above the high water line and outside of jurisdictional bank?
Yes, except that we'd want to take out the existing things that are sitting there in the water, that's all. So that just we could actually leave that pier that you see in the foreground, or the closest one to the viewer, is mounted in concrete. So we don't have to pull out the concrete pier if you'd rather us not be in the water, but we could pull it out at the same time. So
okay.
It could go either way. But we obviously want to take the wood out.
You could cut them off and just leave the concrete, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Thoughts from the commission?
Seems like not a big deal to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. It seems like it's we're not adding anything. It's just more of a repair.
Exactly.
If they move the piers back away from the water, the high water line, that's an improvement. If we leave the concrete pieces where they are and cut off the current structure at the concrete line, you're not making any disturbance there. So that would be simple.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I would say with regards to bordering land subject to flooding, I don't think we would have any alteration that impacts any of the presumptions of what that resource area is providing, because it's, it might be a slightly different conversation if we were in bank or land underwater and more concerned about the habitat features, but for that purpose, I don't have any concerns. And I would presume that the amount of digging you're going to have to do is essentially de minimis anyways.
That would be the goal.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Paul, anything more specific you were hoping to get from us this evening?
No, that's it. I realize I can't get a definitive, but I don't want you to be shocked and get reprimanded if I submit a DOA or a request for determination rather.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, well, we can't do that. So I don't want to surprise anybody. We really have appreciated the relationship we developed with you doing the stabilization wall. which is going out to bid next week, actually.
Great.
So you'll be hearing more about that. But we want to, keep on with that same type of relationship, and so do everything above board and with your full knowledge, and go forward from there.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be willing to entertain this as an RDA based on what you've shared. So,
All right, excellent.
We'll look for that
That's the
RDA.
only thought we need. All right. Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Paul.
Good night.
All right. The MAC conference is coming up on Saturday.
Yep. If you'd like to come, I know Julie's going. If anyone else would like to come, let me know. I can get you in.
Great.
I'll be there.
Oh, yay. That's great. But your work paid for it, Dan?
Yeah, I'm presenting too.
I saw that. Yeah.
Fabulous.
All right. Manhattan
Well-
dam removal study. I heard about this from somebody, and I said, I don't know anything about that. What is this?
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll share a little bit about it, but then I also put it on here to see if Dan wanted to share anything about it. So DPW applied for a grant through Department of Ecological Restoration, Department of Ecological Restoration, yeah,
Division.
through Fish and Game Division of Ecological Restoration. Thank you. It's for the Manhan Dam, the one over off of Route 10, to be considered for study about what removing it would do from an ecological and an engineering perspective. And that's the one where we have the fish ladder at.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and I will say, I can just share that we were a little bit surprised in the planning department. We didn't know we were even contending for it. DPW applied for it because the dam does have associated costs each year. And our DPW director, Greg, is proactive and was like, this is just going to keep having more costs as it's not a functioning dam and it'll continue to degrade. So what would happen if we removed it? So we might as well check that out. And obviously from an ecological perspective, dam removal is really exciting. So my understanding is DER is contracting with Stantec to do a dam removal study of our dam, and we'll have the results afterwards. And the tenor in the city is that overall in the city is that we're interested in knowing what would happen from an ecological perspective and an economic perspective should the dam be removed, and with respect to private property. It's not necessarily that is the approach the city wants to take. So just to sort of say that we're not like full steam ahead on like, now we're just going to run towards removing it as fast as possible. But I thought it would be good to get on your radar because obviously it will concern us as it moves forward, not in the study phase as much, but if anything moves forward. And I'm curious, Dan, if you have anything to add to this.
Yeah, so I got the city on. Well, I should say. I mean, so the long story is I overheard in passing through work DER saying, "Oh, it's too bad there's a dam there." So I helped the city apply for the grant to just study the program, just to study the potential for removal of this. And I think it's I don't know. I'm kind of a dam removal advocate, and so I think what I'm telling everybody is that I probably, if this ever came up for a project that got permitted from the Conservation Commission, I'd probably recuse myself on it just because I'm kind of close to it. And so I'm kind of trying to help, like, I don't know. I'm going to be advocating for it, I think, because even though there is the fish ladder there, but there's just so many reasons why dam removal is better than a fish ladder. And there's a fairly big bedrock outcrop at the site as it is. The dam sits atop what was probably an old falls. So my thinking is that maybe the fish ladder could still be there and would still do a job even if the dam got removed, perhaps. I don't know. I think it'd be a cool study, and I can't wait to see what our Stantec friends come up with. And I've already so my time bond, my employer, we were not the designer of the fish ladder, but we're kind of like the construction manager, administrator for the fish ladder project back in the, whatever that was, 2012, 2013 or thereabouts. So I've already been sending files and things over to DER and Stantec that they can hopefully use to try to make the project happen. So I think it's cool. I can't wait to see what it looks like and or what they come up with.
Thank you, Dan. I didn't even know all of your input on that. So thanks for sharing all that and for all you've done for the city on this.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, that's exciting. So that's a city-owned dam? I don't think I realized that.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't exactly know the story, but the brick building that's down by the river there it was called the Waterworks building. Yeah, and so I don't know. I guess my assumption was that it was an early water supply, private or public or something like that the city then took over at one point and ended up with the dam. I don't know. So I'm sure it's going to be a controversial project. Just because of there was a
because of the dam removal. And they all
exactly. It was a dam removal. There's a big honking sewer, like a 24-inch sewer interceptor right under the river, just upstream of it, which is not going to make anything easy. And even though the fish ladder was constructed with federal funds, there's the perception that it was a huge cost to the city, and there probably was some cost to the city at that time. But
it is over 10 years old at this point.
Yep. Yeah. And some, as far as I understand it, there are some features that fish ladder was intended to have that never got funded and implemented. So it's just one of those things. But when that got constructed, dam removal was just not something that, sure, it had happened in Massachusetts before, but, and was starting to happen more, but it was kind of unusual, right? Whereas now I think there's just been a real shift in terms of how people, at least dam owners and, people that do these types of projects as to its feasibility. So when you go back and look at the environmental assessment from the mid 2000s, that I think was U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did, they're looking at alternatives, and it's dam removal, and it's like a single sentence: dam removal was not considered because because of the impacts to wetlands or something. But but we all know that the benefits are greater than that. And if you come to MACC on Saturday, you'll hear us talk all about it.
Great. Well, thanks, Ava, for looping us all in on that. And please keep us updated as information starts to come out.
I will. And once we have the report, I'll share it with the commission for your review. And I'll keep you updated as to how the conversation progresses too.
Great.
Thanks for your help, Dan.
No problem.
Any other general business?
That's all I have for you.
All right. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Buttrick?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Motion carries. It is 7:19 and we are concluding this evening's meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Our next meeting will be March 9th at 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.